If you're thinking about relocating to the Orlando, Florida area, then you're going to want to know the reality of what it's like to live in the Orlando area from a local's perspective. I moved to the Orlando area back in the 80s, and I learned some things the hard way that I wish someone had told me before I moved here. Today I'll be sharing 11 things that you must know before moving to Orlando, Florida. But look, these are not listed in any particular order, but I will say there's a couple toward the end that you may find surprising. So we're here today in downtown Orlando, and obviously we don't have any alligators here, but when I get people calling me from all over the country or the world and they're looking to relocate to the Orlando area, they're often freaked out by alligators. Now, what they'll tell me is that they don't want to be anywhere near any lakes, any rivers, or anything, but let me tell you, alligators are not a big deal to the locals here in the Orlando area. And crocodiles, well, we don't have those. Now, I believe crocodiles are man-eating, but alligators are not. And they are everywhere, okay? Well, they're not everywhere here in Orlando, but if you're near a lake, a river, a stream, alligators are around. They're going to be there. And it's true that they can run, I think, 25 miles an hour. And they're a big hit with the national media. They love it when something happens because it's big news. But the reality is, alligators do not chase us around. They don't follow us just waiting to eat us. They really mind their own business, and they're not making a living eating people or our dogs. They're getting their meals from eating fish, turtles, and birds, not people. We respect them, and they really respect us. We each kind of do our own sort of thing. They are in our lakes, but although we know they're there, we don't worry about them. I will say we don't swim at dawn or dusk in remote kind of quiet areas. That's bad news, and that's how they do end up on the national media. But we do still water ski, we do still hike the rivers and the lake edges, we fish and we kayak in these rivers all the time. In the winters, we hardly see alligators at all. Hardly ever do we see them. Now, sometimes people do feed them, and that is bad news, and that is another reason why alligators end up on national news with somebody in their jaws. So if you see somebody, if you come to Florida, to Orlando, and you see somebody feeding them, tell them to cut it out. But when you move to the Orlando area, you will get used to alligators. You're going to get accustomed to it. They're just not that big of a deal. It's the same thing with sharks. They're in our oceans, but we don't worry about them. Spiders, massive cockroaches, snakes, you're going to get used to them because they like this tropical, beautiful climate as much as we do. The next thing you need to know before moving to Orlando is that hurricanes are not a big deal to Orlando locals. They're just not. They're big for the media, but not here in the local area. Hurricanes do not come every year. Some years we'll get 2 or 3 in a year, and then we'll have none for 2 or 3 or 4 years. And when they do come, they do not cover the entire state. If a hurricane comes in down in Miami or Fort Lauderdale, it may have no impact on us whatsoever. Same thing can be said if a hurricane comes in off the Gulf and goes up to Pensacola, the Big Bend area. They don't mean anything to us. However, if they do come in our area, because Orlando is here in the middle of the state, it matters. However, the good news for us in the Orlando area is we're about 50 miles inland, and that 50 miles allows the hurricane to lose a lot of its punch before it gets to us. Now, are we still going to have winds? Can it still be a Category 1 or a 2 hurricane? Yes, it can. Back in 2004, we had, I believe, 4 hurricanes that came right here, and it made a mess of us. Since then, we've only had a couple that have really paid any mind to us, so to speak. When they come, when a hurricane comes our way, we know it's coming for usually a week or 10 days. It's pandemonium for the media. They make a big deal of it. The nightly news, the local news, it's the chatter among everybody. And we're looking to see, is it really coming or is it not coming here to Orlando? Now, when a hurricane does come, is it a big deal? Well, we do pay attention to it, yes, but oftentimes we're planning our hurricane parties, which, well, I don't think I need to go into that too much. They're indoor parties, but we're getting our extension cords together, we're getting our generators together, getting gas for them, getting our phone chargers all set up, or we're taking a mini vacation. In other words, if one's coming here in Orlando, we might head down to Miami for a weekend or up to Fort Lauderdale, or excuse me, up to Destin or even Atlanta, but we're going to take a little vacation and just leave. Hurricanes can be very bad. I don't want to downplay them because sometimes they can create real problems, but they are rare. I've never been impacted myself in a significant manner other than a few trees down in the yard. We've had really bad ones. Back in 1992, there was Hurricane Andrew. Irma was in 2017, and then there's Hurricane Michael in 2018. When they come, we can have severe flooding and all that mess. Now, when people call us and they're looking to move to this area, we're often finding people homes. Well, we're always trying to find people homes outside of flood zones. And this is when it really matters, because when you're looking at homes, when there's not hurricanes or when it's not wet, everything looks fine and dandy. But we're paying attention to a lot of things to make sure we find you the right home. Next, let's talk about insurance, because you can get insurance for hurricanes, and that comes in the form of your homeowner's insurance policy. When there's a hurricane, there's a hurricane deductible. Usually it's 2 or 3% of the insured value of that home. So it's a lot of money. It could still be $3, $4, $5, $8, $10,000. But if your home should be destroyed, if you're in one of those really, really bad ones like Hurricane Andrew, it's grateful. I'm grateful usually to have that benefit at that time. The next thing that you need to know about if you're moving to the Orlando area is that the traffic here in Orlando is horrendous. I read that it's the 38th worst in the entire nation. That's pretty scary when I consider Orlando a very clean, a very small, large town. Although as I look around here, there's high rises all around me. And some areas are especially bad. Some areas like I-4 down near Champions Gate. Downtown, it can be a train wreck, absolutely stopped. But it's not just downtown that the traffic is bad. It can be from DeBerry up north to Kissimmee all the way down south, and on the east side, I'd say from Winter Park to Claremont out west. And it can be any time of the day. It's not just at rush hour. It can be Sunday at 2 p.m. So if you're going somewhere in this area that I said, you need to be aware that traffic can be a real problem, and that you need to plan accordingly. Sometimes you can spend 45 minutes just going 2 miles away. So what about public transportation? Well, public transportation is relatively non-existent in this area. We do have the Lynx bus that'll take you from up north from probably Sanford all the way down to Haines City or Point Siena, and it's only a few bucks. We do have the Sunrail, which is also just a few bucks, but that's primarily just the I-4 corridor. Of course, there are plenty of Uber drivers and Lyft drivers here, but that's expensive. The truth is, I absolutely hate driving in the Orlando area. In fact, I live on the north side of Orlando because of the traffic and the congestion. So when people are calling us about moving to the area, it's not very often that I'm recommending that they come to Orlando proper. They also added some express lanes and the express lanes to I-4 and the Beltway around Orlando, which have helped quite a bit with the traffic, but now you're paying those tolls, and that's something, maybe I'm just a cheapskate, but I don't like spending all that money on tolls. Speaking of traffic and distance, if you're relocating to Orlando, then you're going to want to know that SeaWorld, Disney World, Islands of Adventure, Universal, and all those attractions are not in Orlando proper. They're about 15 miles down I-4 in Lake Buena Vista and Kissimmee. And so if you're going to the attractions, you're going to want to be there early or face rush hour and whatever it may bring to you. Sitting in rush hour traffic could cost you an hour, it could cost you an hour and a half sometimes if traffic is stacked up. And if you spend all that money, because those attractions are not cheap, you're going to be sorry. So definitely get there before or afterwards. When my wife and I took our children down to the attractions years ago, we would be there at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and the kids hated that. But we would get there early enough so that we could have breakfast and be ready, because we didn't want to lose our time and our money that we spent on that. Now, if you're staying in Orlando proper, where I am now as these large, loud trucks go by, be aware that staying in Orlando proper might be an unwise decision because of all this traffic. You're going to have to pay tourist prices if you don't have your own wheels. Now, if you're coming here, if you stay down in the attractions area, it's going to be more expensive. You're going to have to pay higher rates. In the Orlando area, you're going to have your own wheels. There are other places that we stay in the Orlando area that kind of, maybe we still need our own wheels, but there are a lot of nice places that you can stay without paying those high tourist attractions. Frankly, if it's me and I'm not coming to Orlando. I'm not going to the tourist area either. Next, let's address the Orlando area tourists that come to our attractions. We have a lot of tourists here in the Orlando area, especially down on the southwest side of town near those attractions I spoke of a minute ago. sometimes tourists can be problematic. Sometimes we have to deal with their rude and disrespectful behavior, unlike most of the Orlando area, where people are friendly. People will smile at you. People will not slam on the horn if you sit at the traffic light for an extra 0.25 seconds. Tourists tend to, sometimes they will stop in the middle of a traffic street and take a selfie because there's some beautiful high-rise building behind them. They will cut in the line. They're bad tippers. They have a sense of entitlement. They have bad driving and they're discourteous drivers, and oftentimes they just ignore traffic rules. And look, this is not just in Orlando proper, this is really throughout the entire area, so that's the downside of tourists. But look, it's not all hate for the tourists. The truth is, I appreciate the tourists for many reasons. I appreciate the culture that the tourists bring to our area. I appreciate the employees that come to our attractions from all over the world to work at our park, and many of them that stay in this area, here in the Orlando area. I appreciate the tourists that come and assimilate with us to help us appreciate what we have here in our area. I appreciate the tax dollars that help our economy so greatly, providing hundreds or thousands of Orlando jobs that help to support the restaurants, the hotels, and all these attractions. Look, the truth is, many tourists are very, very friendly. So we've spent a few points talking about tourists, but many Orlando natives don't even like the attractions. And the truth is, I absolutely hate the attractions, especially Walt Disney World. Now, it is the happiest place on earth for so many people, but everybody here in the Orlando area does not like the attractions. And I'm coming out of the closet. I don't like Disney World, but there's a lot more to the Orlando area. So let's talk about some of the other outdoor activities that we do right here in Orlando. With year-round sunshine, Orlando has a lot to offer outdoors. We have wonderful beaches like New Smyrna, Daytona, and Cocoa beaches are just 30 to 45 minutes away depending on where you live here. We have wonderful springs with 72-degree water flowing out of them just 30 or 45 minutes away. In these springs, we swim, we scuba, we fish, we watch manatees. You can do anything. It's just a beautiful place to be, especially in the summer when it's hot here. We have tons of rivers like the Wekiva River, Alexander Springs, and the Ocklawaha River, where you can actually see monkeys heading up to Silver Springs. Beautiful place to go. We have an abundance of state forests right here in the Orlando area. Hunting, fishing, birding, hiking, ATVs. I can't even think of what else. There's so many things you can do in these forests. You can see deer, hogs, black bear, ospreys, wild turkeys, alligators. You can see it all. We have tons of lakes in the St. Johns River. We have the ocean just 45 minutes east of us in Orlando and probably 35 minutes north up in the DeLand area. We have Mosquito Lagoon, which is where I spent a lot of time fishing. Skiing is big here, jet skiing, boating, and these things are happening all year round. In the spring, we have all the Major League Baseball teams here in Florida, many of them right here in Central Florida. You can go on airboat rides or cat boats. Cat boats are these little micro boats with one or two people that go really fast, a lot of fun. We have some wonderful zoos. We have the Sanford Zoo just north of Orlando, and we have the Lowry Park Zoo, which is one of my favorites in the entire area. It's down I-4 in Tampa. There's all sorts of go-karting, there's mini golf, fun spot. You can even drive a tank here in the Orlando area. Cycling is huge here in the Orlando area, especially up on the north side and out west, where these miles of endless multi-use trails. So I mentioned that Orlando has an abundance of lakes and rivers. We also know that here in the Orlando area that we don't deal with snow like you do up north. So these rivers and the lakes, they don't freeze up here, and we have great weather throughout the winter. So as such, we have these things called boat parades. Now, boat parades are actually a big deal, and it is just like it sounds. We have boats that go down and they make this little parade, and they're really popular at Christmas time. A boat parade is really when individual boat owners decorate their boats. They decorate with Christmas lights, music, and maybe yard decorations. Maybe there's Rudolph or Frosty the Snowman or whatever on the boat, and they'll dress it up. They'll line up at an organized destination, and they'll float on down the river along the edge of the lake. It's a lot of fun. We sit there on the bank and we'll watch in the evenings, and maybe we'll have a hot or maybe some cold drinks of any kind. It's kind of a family tradition for us. We like to go up to DeLand to watch the DeLand boat parade there on the St. Johns River. But look, these boat parades are throughout the area. There's really good ones. There's some good ones in Mount Dora, Leesburg, Cocoa, Winter Park, and even one in New Smyrna Beach. Now, is it quirky? Yeah, it's definitely a little bit quirky, but it's really an overlooked gem that if you're moving to the Orlando area that you should look into. So we know that the Orlando area is one of the happiest places on earth, but we also know that spending time in lines does not make most people happy, especially me. I hate it, and that's what you're going to spend your time doing at these theme parks. We also know that at those theme parks, you're going to spend a lot of money, along with your vacation time, which for most of us is not endless. As such, you need to spend the money for the Fast Pass or the Fast Pass equivalent. Do your homework, get online, find out what they offer and what they don't. But I can tell you that is money well spent. You may hate me now, but you'll thank me later. If you're moving to the Orlando area, you must know that Orlando is no longer the cheap place to live that it used to be. People used to buy second homes here in the Orlando area all the time, but they just can't afford to do that anymore. Cities like Deltona were built out simply for people to snowbird here. Back in the 70s and 80s, there used to be full-time jobs. People made a living cold calling people up north and selling land down here in Florida. Well, today I get calls all the time to sell these lots. I've sold a ton of these lots, and from people up north that have never been to their land. However, the word is out. About 1,000 people a day, every single day, are moving to the Orlando area. They're moving here because they're tired of the snow up there. They're coming here for the economics in this area, and I'll come to that later. They're coming here for a sunshine and to retire. There's a lot of reasons. So if you think that you're going to get a bargain home here in the Orlando area, you're probably wrong. I sell a lot of homes here in the Orlando area, and some areas are way cheaper than others. And if you're thinking of moving here, you need to call us before you do that, because if you're budget conscious, it really, really matters where you're going. But we sell homes, not just the budget conscious people, but we sell all sorts of homes. The point is, call us before you get down here. It's important to know too that Florida has no income tax. Sales taxes are right around 7% depending on which county you're in. According to payscale.com, Orlando is about 4% less for the overall cost of living than the national average. We're about 11% less for housing, which is much higher than it used to be, and we're about 2% less for transportation. Now, we are slightly higher here in the Orlando area on utilities and groceries. Orlando is a destination with over 57 million people flying into Orlando International Airport just last year alone. Orlando International Airport, or MCO, is a very popular airport throughout Central Florida. It's right in Orlando, and it gets you anywhere that you need to go. And sometimes I have to fly out of Orlando International Airport. However, and this is important, Sanford International Airport, or SFB up in Sanford, is a much better option. It's about 25 minutes up I-4 from right here where I stand today. It's very inexpensive. You can get tickets to most places up along the East Coast for $50 to $100, $200 for a round trip. Very easy to navigate in and out of that airport. The short lines, quick in and out, and it doesn't take you 30 or 45 minutes to get to your car as it does in Orlando. Now maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it certainly feels like that. Yes, if you live on the south side of Orlando, you may think that it'd be better just to go to Orlando International Airport. However, a lot of times people are driving from Dr. Phillips up to Sanford because the overall picture going to Sanford International Airport is going to save you money. Now, it's true that Sanford International Airport does not go to all of the locations that Orlando International Airport does, but it's something that you should know, because if you do any traveling at all, it's just a better place to be. I do love the Orlando area. Florida's a sunshine state after all, and people move here for the sunshine. However, what you've got to know is that the summers in the Orlando area, well, they can be absolutely miserable. To me, they are as bad as the Michigan winters where I grew up. Temperatures here in the Orlando area from mid-May to probably mid-September will be in the mid to high 90s. I don't care what the weatherman tells you, you're going to see the mid-90s most days through the heat of the summer. And the oppressive humidity is absolutely unbearable. Yes, like 25% of the Orlando area residents do have swimming pools, and we have beaches and all those lakes that I spoke of before, but the reality is that most of us don't spend our lives in those beaches, in those lakes, and in those beautiful springs. We have to work. We have to get to the beaches. We have to get to the parks, and then we have to stand in those lines like I spoke of before, and it's miserable if you're standing in the lines at a theme park in 95-degree heat. When I go out to my truck it's regularly well over 100 degrees. And frankly, by the time I get to my truck, I'm often sweating before I get there. Then I get in, I roll down my windows, and it takes 5 minutes before the air conditioning is cool enough for me to enjoy. Now you might be thinking, well, don't you have showers every afternoon? Well, we do. Just about every afternoon here in the Orlando area, we have these rain showers, and they're great, right? Well, no, they're not so great. They may cool things off just a bit, but then you've got like 100% humidity and air that's just stale. It can be quite, I don't know, you almost wear it. Mosquitoes and no-see-ums come out in force, and look, these storms, they can pop up very quickly. They're often chasing me off the water if I'm out there fishing, and rest assured, they can chase you off the theme parks too. Now, do we get used to all this? Yes, we do get used to it, just like you get used to the snow up north, but it's something you need to know before you move to the Orlando area. Is Orlando perfect? Well, no, heck no, it's not, but it's a great place to live, and there are a lot of reasons that so many people are moving here every day. I do hope that knowing these things helps you before you move to the Orlando area. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.